If you invested in the altcoin market in the last year, there's a very good chance that you're down. Yes, there are a few outliers, a few alts that made quite good returns, but the vast majority is down. And so if you've got a diversified portfolio, if you don't just own 2 or 3 alts, but maybe 10, 20 alts, chances are, because of diversification, you did not make money. Now in this video, we are going to talk about Aptos. Aptos also did not make any money last year, but maybe that's a potential opportunity. Things come down and potentially bounce again. Let's have a look at the on-chain metrics, the data most people are not considering. Now, it doesn't necessarily start off that great. This is coinglass.com and it's the token unlock overview page. At number 1, we've got Aptos listed. Aptos has an expanding supply. We are currently at 592 million tokens, and in a year that will be more than 700 million tokens. Now, when the supply of a token goes up over time, that's not necessarily great, because that means that early investors and the team, they get token unlocks, and more often than not, they tend to sell those unlocks. They tend to take some profit. They take some chips off the table. They might not sell every single token that gets unlocked immediately, but they do tend to sell over time at least. And that's then why we see charts like this. This is the Aptos price relative to the others market cap. So how is Aptos doing relative to all other altcoins? We peaked at the beginning of 2023, and since then APT has underperformed the altcoin market by 95%. Yes, we are at the lower end of the trading range, and yes, we could see a rally that's potentially more than 100%. But personally, I'm not a fan of betting against the general macro trend. I rather look for entry points to bet on falling prices and make money that way. So that's a very common approach that I utilize. I bet on rising prices of Bitcoin and at the same time falling prices of an inflating altcoin. So let's investigate whether or not this makes sense for Aptos right now. What we see here, that's Bitcoin relative to Aptos. So we bet on rising prices of Bitcoin, we bet on falling prices of Aptos, and that tends to do better than just betting on Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price for reference is here, this orange line. So we get less volatility, we get more return, a better risk to reward. Is that potentially an opportunity? Let's have a look at the usage metrics for Aptos. This is the total value locked, the TVL measured in US dollars. This does not necessarily speak for the project. It does speak for a potential short though. But once we don't measure this in US dollars, once we measure this in Aptos, then the chart doesn't look that negative anymore. Here is the stablecoin market cap over time. Also, there seems to be money flowing into the chain. Here's the app revenue over time, also rather growing over the years. The decentralized exchange trading volume measured in Aptos is growing, but measured in US dollars, it's not. And so that's the crux here. It looks like Aptos as a project does see increased adoption, but that increase in adoption does not offset the massive token inflation. The token inflation is just too aggressive. The tokenomics are too aggressive. The investors are cashing out too quickly. If the unlocks were to be only half or 1/3 of that rate, then maybe the APT price might actually go up. Because of the unlocks, the perpetual futures traders, so the very speculative risk-on traders, they are also rather bearish. Have a look at the funding rate. This tends to be negative. So the shorts have to pay the longs. It costs money to bet on falling prices of APT. Again, something that does not speak for a short because it costs money, right? It's better if we were to actually gain some financing costs, if we don't have to pay that. Now there seems to be a flip over here. That happened on the 10th of October. This is something we see for many altcoins. The 10th of October was a flash crash. Many altcoins went down. Aptos went down more than the average altcoin by 85%. And then automated trading bots, market makers, they bought up this very cheap supply, sold this off over time. The average altcoin, so this is now the others market cap, only went down by 48% on that day, on the 10th of October. And so when all the longs get wiped out, there's only shorts left. Only the pessimists have survived. And that's why we've got our long-term negative funding rate now. The optimists have lost everything on that 10th of October. Another point that might potentially speak against a short position is that the open interest on APT is already very low. And there is correlation between open interest, so the amount of bets on a token, versus the spot price. The more speculation there is, the more open interest there is on a token, the higher the spot price tends to be. So have a look at this, right? Open interest comes in waves. Attention goes from asset to asset. Sometimes there's a lot of speculation on Aptos. Sometimes there is less. We want to buy the token when there's very little open interest. We want to sell the token when there is very high open interest. And currently open interest tends to be rather low. And if that was to go up, then the Aptos price would go up as well. Trading volume is also rather low. And again, there is correlation between trading volume and the spot price. And we've already talked about the funding costs. They're really not that great. Yes, long-term Bitcoin outperforms Aptos by much more than what the funding rates imply. But buying APT now is very dangerous as well. I'm not really a fan. So I'm looking for an entry opportunity. I'm looking for the price to hit at least the very first resistance over here, make a first entry for a short at that point, and potentially, if we climb higher, open the short at the second resistance. That kind of a bet would of course be especially attractive if open interest gets close to 500 million again, because it seems like history repeats itself for Aptos. If you got some value out of this video, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. Feel free to also check out the premium membership. This is where I share my own trades. You can also automatically copy trade me over there as well. See you in premium or see you in YouTube again. Cheers.